There is an intelligence which permeates every atom of matter and embraces every unit of energy perceptible. This infinite intelligence converts acorns into oak trees, causes water to flow downhill in response to the law of gravity, follows night with day and winter with summer. This intelligence may, through the principles of this philosophy, be induced to aid in transmuting desires into concrete or material form. But does it really work in the real world? There's only one way to find out. Hello there and welcome. Do you know, you and I are supposed to be here. We're in the right place at the right time. There are no accidents in this whole universe. Everything operates in an orderly way. You've been wandering around, I would imagine, with a desire inside that you really want to improve any or maybe all areas of your life. What you're going to hear will enable you to change that. And this is all about you. It's not about me, it's about you. I'm going to share information with you that really originated way back in 1908 from the wealthiest man in the world, Andrew Carnegie. He commissioned a young reporter to go out and find the laws that govern success. There were successful people, himself, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. Some of the giants that we look at in history as names that they'll live forever. And he said it was a shame that these people were going to go to their grave with all this knowledge locked up in their bones. And he said, I think it should be recorded. And that young man, Napoleon Hill, he took Carnegie's challenge and he went and worked at that until 1928, when he wrote The Laws of Achievement. And then in 1937, from it came the book, one of the greatest selling books of all time, Think and Grow Rich. And in that book, he pointed out, after all these years of research, that he found there were 30 major causes of failure. But there were only 13 ideas that contributed to a person accumulating a fortune or enjoying real success. One of the things I found interesting is at the end of the 30 major causes of failure, he put 31. He said, if I've missed any, you can fill this in. And I would imagine that someone has filled that in. So I want you to really pay close attention. This is not an ordinary film that you're watching. These are not ordinary ideas. These ideas are coming from 57 years of focused study by myself and tens of years by Napoleon Hill. But it's really the composite of some of the greatest minds that ever lived. Because he did research with these people for so long, kept picking their brains. In fact, he became very close friends with them. And what caused them to do many of the things they were doing, the ideas that got the Wright brothers off the ground, that enabled Henry Ford to build the car he built. These ideas, they're the ideas that you can have and you can use. Now, I know they work because I've used them. I've used them almost all of my adult life. In the preamble of the book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill says there's a secret in this book. And he said, if you can find the secret in the book, you can have anything you seriously want. Naturally, I'm wondering, what's the secret when I first started to read the book? Do you know, almost every seminar that I've ever spoken in, or any convention I ever spoke in, I talk about that, and people say, what's the secret? I said, you know, if I told you what the secret was, you're not going to look for it. And if you don't look for it, you're not going to find what you really need to get to where you want to go. I have never told anyone what my perception of that secret is. But he pointed out that everyone who found it and used it has earned millions of dollars. They have built very large organizations, and he names them one after another. Very impressive names. Every one of them found the secret. You're going to find the secret. in these 13 principles. Believe me. One day I took a pen and I sat down and I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it. But you know what I've found? You don't have to know how you're going to do it. You just have to know you're going to do it. So if you've got a desire to build something, to do something that's extraordinary for you, I can promise you one thing. If you will focus on what I'm suggesting, I'm going to show you how to do it. You see, the beautiful truth is you've already got everything you need inside. You don't have to get it. You don't have to follow the pattern that our formal educational institutions teach us. You don't have to read all the books. That's not necessary. I think Madame Montessori put it very well. She said, we send a child to school as if they're an empty cup and we expect them to fill the cup. She says, the truth is the cup's already full. School is to help draw out what's already there. You see, you and I are God's highest form of creation. There's nothing on the planet that will even come close to us. Strange thing, you know, you and I are the only creature on the planet that is totally disoriented in our environment. All those other little creatures, they're completely at home in their environment. They blend in. We don't. We're totally disoriented. And that is because we have the ability, you and I do, of creating our own environment. Now think of what that means. That means that you and I can literally create the life we want. Now, as I said, when I first heard that, I did not believe it. But I knew the man that was giving me the advice believed it. And that man was Raymond Douglas Stanford, one of my very first mentors. And as he said to me, he said, Bob, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? Now, to help you understand where I was, I'd been asked to leave school. They didn't want me there after 2 months in high school. And I can understand why they didn't want me. I was a poor student. I didn't want to pay attention. I had never had a half-decent job in my life. I was earning $4,000 a year, but I owed $6,000. The prospect of even getting out of debt wasn't there. He said, Bob, that's all reasons why you can't do what you want to do. We're not going to spend any time on that. We're going to focus on how you can. This idea has been proved by people much smarter than us. And the beautiful truth is, it works for everyone. Not just some people, for everyone. And I think this thing is stuck in my mind. He said, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? Now spend a moment right now and ask yourself, what would you really like to do? I mean, what do you really want? Do you know, the truth is your spiritual DNA is perfect. We hear a lot of talk about DNA today. Well, if you get past all the nonsense that's been programmed into our subconscious mind from genetics and in our environment, and get right down to the core of who you really are, your spiritual DNA is perfect. And it's that perfection that's seeking expression with and through us. That's why we want things. It doesn't matter what we're doing, we want more. Now, as a little boy, I was taught by my grandmother, who pretty well raised me, that you should be satisfied with what you've got. Grandma was a dear woman. She was like an angel of God, but she was wrong. We should never be satisfied with what we got. We should be happy with what we've got, but never satisfied. You see, dissatisfaction is a creative state for our mind to move into. It causes us to want to do more. We should ask ourselves where those wants come from. Do you know it's that perfection within that keeps jabbing you in the consciousness? Want this, want that. If you're running, you want to run faster. If you're jumping, you want to jump higher. If you're selling, you want to sell more. If you're singing, you want to sing a better tune. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. You want to do it better. And the beautiful part of this is you can. You see, I have practiced all 30 rules for losing. I know them well. None of them work. They'll never give us what we want. But I have spent many, many years on the 13 principles of success that have helped millions of people earn millions of dollars. And you see, the one criteria is it doesn't matter where you're at right now. If you are very successful, you can become more successful because you have infinite potential. No one can even guess at what you and I are capable of doing. If you've been failing miserably up till now, that doesn't matter. Let the dead bury the dead. We let the past go. And we just focus on who we are, where we are, and what we're going to do. These 13 principles all come together like a beautiful mosaic. Now, although I will explain each one, I don't think you can talk about one without the other. We're getting into ideas like desire, decision, the sixth sense, organized planning. All these ideas are so important, and when you first look at it, it may seem overwhelming. How would I ever be able to do this? It isn't even difficult. We're going to give you a path, and you get on that path, you're going to have an absolutely phenomenal future. The future will be beautiful. Oh, you'll have some problems. We all do. I still have, and I've been working at this for all my adult life. But you know something? Our perception of the problem is different because we see the opportunity in it. If we didn't have any problems, we would be living a pretty dull life. We wouldn't be living at all, we'd be existing. So as we go along here, really focus. Don't treat this as some self-help program. It goes so much deeper than that. It's so much more important. There's been so many hours by brilliant people that have used this information, that have tested it for many, many years. You have the opportunity now to put all this to work. And as you put it to work like that, you'll start to see changes happen. Or you give yourself a window of time, maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years. You're going to look, your perception of your life will shift so dramatically. You'll think you were reading about somebody else's life when you look back. I often say you're going to need a telescope to look back and see where you started. Now that may sound like an exaggeration, but it's really not. Remember I said I was $4,000 in debt? Or I earned $4,000 and I owed $6,000. I've earned millions of dollars. Now I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you, if a guy like myself can do it, anybody can do it. It's pretty well known today there's a lot of fear in the world. People are wondering what's going to happen. We've gone through many tough times if you study history. I was born during the Great Depression. So I was of an age then, I remember some of the things as a little kid. Then we went into a world war. And when the Depression ended, it was sort of like a theater where the lights were out. It was empty, but the lights started to come up. And things started to get brighter. And of course, they became very bright. So the fear, don't let fear control you. Fear is a negative emotion. By following these principles, you're going to be on the other side of fear, where there's faith. There's a law of the universe called polarity. That law decrees everything has an opposite. Every negative has a positive. The truth is, it's neither positive or negative. It's our thinking that makes it so. Everything just is. We can make it what we want. Make up your mind now. You're going to go in the positive polarity. You're going to stay with me because that's where I'm going. And there'll be a very bright future. Let the fear go. It isn't necessary. The cause of it is ignorance. The cause of all fear is ignorance. I'm going to give you understanding. It only comes through study. But it will brighten your life and it will improve your results. And I've had nothing but a strong desire to teach this now for years and years. At first, I didn't know what happened. I was studying this, and I was winning, but I didn't know why. I'd earned over $1 million in a year, and I had absolutely no idea how I had done it. Now, probably like yourself, I had been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I knew I wasn't very smart, but I was earning a lot of money. I was raised to believe if You're going to get a good job. You've got a good formal education. I didn't have any. I had 2 months in a technical school in high school. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. I had offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, London, England. And I looked at all this and I thought, how did this happen? And I didn't know. If you had asked me, I couldn't tell you. But you know what I have found? I have found most highly successful people cannot articulate on why they are. They will say, well, I do this or I do that. And they'll point to one of these 13 principles that they worked at and mastered. The truth is, they're probably using them all and just not aware of it. They're what you call, or I call, an unconscious competent. They're very competent, but they're not consciously aware of why. Now, the sad part of this is that they've got this wonderful way of life, but they can't even transfer it to their children, nor can they give it to their staff. So you find very successful businessmen and women in business or just in life, but they don't know why. Well, I got very curious. I wanted to know why. Why did a guy like me change? I didn't believe there was an emotional or capricious God reached out and said, let's give Bob a chance. I didn't believe that. I thought, something's happened. What's happened? Well, I spent 9.5 years studying with some absolutely brilliant people. Now, I formed a good habit over that time. I picked good mentors, and that's very important. You can use these films as a mentor. You can. You can let me be your mentor. You know, I've often heard it said people that have been gone for a couple of thousand years can help you more than somebody that's alive today. And I get a lot of help from people that have been gone for a long time through their books and writings. So you could use this series as a mentor. But a habit I formed right from the first person that helped me, Ray Stanford, he said, do exactly what I tell you. And for some reason, I decided I would. I didn't question him, I just did it. He said, do it until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. And he said, I don't lie, and I do know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to say that to you, and hopefully you'll grasp it the same as I did. Do what I suggest in these films until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't lie. And believe me, I do know what I'm talking about. Many years ago, they said, by their results, you'll know them, or by their fruits, you'll know them. Well, I'm 84. I've got as much energy as many people, 24 or 44. I've earned millions of dollars. I have wonderful friends all over the world. And this came to a guy that started with nothing. This does work for anyone. It truly does work for anyone. So dig into this and say, I'm going to give this a whirl until I find out he's lying or he doesn't know what he's talking about. You do that, and you're going to find these 13 principles will change your life like night and day. I searched every day, and every time I picked a new mentor, and I did pick new mentors, I did exactly what they said. It was difficult at first because what I was really doing was changing habit patterns. But they were teaching me things. They were teaching me information that the average person may never learn. I developed a very close rapport with them. And they were brilliant people, every one of them very accomplished. That is a good rule. If you want to do something, go to someone who has demonstrated by results they do know what they're talking about. Ask them, what should you do? Then do exactly what they tell you. Now, I know that works because I'm still doing it. And I do it every day. So I'm going to ask you to resurrect some of those dreams that you may have let fade. Bring them to the surface of your mind. Treat this as some magic formula if you want. And you'll find out it'll produce. I once read where a writer said, you know, when you really understand how the magicians perform their tricks, it isn't magic any longer. And that's true. I work conventions every now and then, and there's a magic act at the convention. They'll ask me to take part in some part of it. So to do that, I have to understand what they're doing. And I found out it's hard to believe. Wonder why the audience doesn't see this. When you understand the trick, it's not magic. But when you understand life, it's really magic. And that's what you're going to find. That's what you're going to find all wrapped up in this. It's absolutely incredible. To understand these 13 principles, this absolutely incredible philosophy, I think we should go back to where it all started. And as you get involved in this, as you mentally build this image in your mind, you're going to see how all this has fallen in place. And it's absolutely incredible the more you think about it. Now, I have been studying this for so long, it's really a part of my life. But we have to go way back to 1908. Things were pretty primitive then relative to today. We weren't moving at the speed we're moving at now. Napoleon Hill was a young reporter for a little magazine. And someone, probably the editor, decided they would run a series of articles of interviewing wealthy people. Hill was fortunate enough to get an interview, a 3-hour interview, with the wealthiest man in the world, Andrew Carnegie. And he went and he sat and he interviewed him. Now, unbeknownst to Napoleon Hill, Andrew Carnegie was looking for someone that he could give a big project to. And he hadn't yet found anyone. At the end of the 3-hour interview, Andrew Carnegie said to Napoleon Hill, "Napoleon, this interview isn't ending, it's just beginning. I want you to come home with me." Hill said he was glad he took him home because he didn't have enough money to rent a hotel room. He spent 3 days with Andrew Carnegie, the wealthiest man in the world. Now think of this. Over those 3 days, Andrew Carnegie shared his philosophy. See, he started out as a poor boy, immigrated from Scotland with his parents just as a boy. They didn't have anything. So he went from nothing to be the wealthiest man in the world. And he shared with Napoleon Hill his whole philosophy. At the end of the 3 days, Carnegie decided that, I think this is the man I'm looking for. I guess you could tell by his level of interest in the story, the philosophy of what got him to where he was. There was probably a number of factors came into play. But Carnegie I think he's the guy. And so he asked him a question. Unbeknownst to Napoleon Hill, he only gave him 60 seconds to answer the question. And at the end of the 60 seconds, he would have to make a decision, a monumentous decision, if you think about it. He looked at him. He had a stopwatch in his hand under his desk. And he says, "Napoleon, you've spent 3 days with me. You know now how I've accomplished what I've accomplished. He says, I'm going to ask you a question, and I just want a yes or no answer. Just a yes or no answer, Napoleon." He said, "Would you spend or invest the rest of your life in an idea for which you would probably receive no material compensation for at least 20 years? How would you answer that question?" I've asked myself on many occasions how I would answer it. In 25 seconds, Napoleon Hill said yes, he would. He qualified. He passed the essay test. And he had to make a decision. That was a big decision. You're going to run up against decisions. This is one of the 13 principles. Napoleon Hill wrote a whole chapter on decision in his book, Think and Grow Rich. And right on the very first page, he points out that all successful people make decisions very fast. They change them very slow, if and when they change them at all. And he pointed out that people that are not successful make decisions very slow and change them fast and often. I guess that's why Andrew Carnegie gave him 60 seconds. If he took longer, he would be disqualified. How do you make decisions? Now, Carnegie said to Hill, he said, "Now, Napoleon, I'm going to introduce you to some of the world's most successful people." He said, "I'm going to give you letters of introduction. You'll receive no subsidy from me. I want you to go out and write the laws of achievement. He says, it's a shame that people like myself are going to their grave with all this knowledge locked up in their bones. He said, I want it organized. And I want you to organize it. I will give you letters of introduction, and then you're on your own. Now, he said, you're going to run into many tough times, Napoleon. No question about that. So he said, I'm going to give you something that'll help you through those tough times. I want you to write this out. I want you to write every word. No one's going to underline every word. Now, he said, this is a message that you're going to give from yourself to yourself, Napoleon. So it's going to be you talking to you. I want you to write down, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. Well, as the story goes, he threw his pencil on the floor. He says, now you know darn well I'm not going to be able to do that. He says, I know you're not, Napoleon, unless and until you believe it. But I want you to repeat that every morning, and I want you to repeat it every night. I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to repeat that. Looking in your eyes, say, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post, and I'm going to pass you at the grandstand. Now, that wasn't an easy thing for Hill to do. He was living with his brother. He had promised his brother that he was going to pay for him to go through college. Now he was going to have to go home and tell his brother he couldn't do that. He had a project that he was working on. It was going to take all his time. And it was going to take every cent that he could get for himself. Then he was afraid to tell his brother what he was going to do because he thought his brother would think he had lost his mind. He's going to work on a 20-year project. Nobody's giving him any money. Nobody's going to pay him. The first day he went and he locked himself in the bathroom. And he looked in the mirror and he whispered it. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and I'm going to pass you at the grandstand. Now he said he felt when he was saying like he was a darn fool. He said, this isn't going to happen. But he said, I made a commitment that I would do this, so I better do it. So every morning and every night he would do this. Now he had committed that he would do it for 30 days. Around the middle of the month, he started to think maybe it could happen. By the end of the month, he knew it would happen. Now I've done a fair amount of study on this over the last 50 years, and anything I've been able to discover is that Carnegie made somewhere in the vicinity of 50 millionaires. Some people say 20. I've read 23. I've read 50. Napoleon Hill has made millions of millionaires. So you see, he did equal his achievements. He went past his achievements, and he did pass them at the grandstand. Here's a poor boy, a young cub reporter for a magazine. How did he do that? Why did he do that? I think he did it strictly on the belief that Carnegie wasn't going to ask him to do anything that was unjust. But why is it that all successful people make decisions very fast and change them slow? And he found out that was true in his research with all these giants. Well, you know, I have never stopped studying it. I probably never will stop studying it. And I'm going to show you something about decision that has the potential to change your life forever. You see, I wanted to know, why do successful people make decisions when they have absolutely no idea how they're going to make it happen? There's a reason for it. Now, many of them are unconscious competence. They don't know why they do. That's just the way they do it. You can become a conscious competent with what I'm going to show you. Now, do you see, it all starts with our own thinking. See, vibration is a law of the universe. Everything vibrates, nothing rests. Look at the walls around you. They're vibrating. They appear to be still. They're really not still. Look at them through a microscope. You'll see the energy dancing in front of your eyes. Go take a look at a body in a coffin. Now, you'll think I'm really losing it here, but listen and think. Look at the body through a microscope. It is not dead. That body's moving. It's moving so fast it appears to be still. And if it wasn't moving, how would it ever change to dust? Everything moves. We live in an ocean of motion. Make no mistake about it. Every level of vibration is referred to as a frequency, and the beautiful truth is we think on frequencies. Do you know that every great leader that has ever lived, every one of them, they've been in complete unanimous agreement. On one point, they've disagreed on virtually everything else. But this one point they've been in agreement on, that we become what we think about. Solomon put it very well. He was a pretty bright guy. He said, as a person thinketh in their heart. It's not just the thoughts that are running across the screen of your conscious minds. It's the ones you internalize. We truly do become what we think about. See, the thoughts that we're thinking produce the results that we're getting. But remember, I pointed out that we're never satisfied with our results. I don't care how they are. You can be happy with them. You can even celebrate some of them. But you're going to want to do better. And that is because you're a spiritual being, and spirit's always for expansion and fuller expression. It's never for disintegration, and nothing stays where it is. Nothing. We do live in an ocean of motion. The dynamic law of life is create or disintegrate. You're never going to stay where you are. Following what we're teaching, you're going to create. It's a beautiful part. So we're looking at our results and we're saying, but this is where I really want to go. And we point to a star that we're shooting at. And we make a decision, that's what I'm going to do. Unfortunately, everybody does that. And 90-some% say, when this improves, then I'm going to do that. Do you know, it'll never happen. It will never happen because you're not on the right frequency. And you see what happens here, pretty soon the decision fades. And when it fades, so does the goal. The goal disappears. Somebody said, I thought you were working. Yeah, well, I am. I'm still working at it. Do you know what the problem is? You're thinking on the wrong frequency. You see, your thought is down here on the frequency that you're living on. But the way to do what you want to do is not on that frequency. Clearly understand this. All science and all theology, the only two sources of reference we have to go to, tell us nothing is created or destroyed. The way to do anything is already here. Space travel, we've always been able to do it. We just weren't aware of how. You know the neat little cell phones we've got that pretty soon will be obsolete? We've always been able to do that. I remember back when we had the party lines. Hardly anybody had a phone. Then when they got one, they got a party line. Everybody's on the line. We were able to build beautiful little cell phones then. Do you know the cell phone you've got has more power as a computer than the computer that took the first rocket to the moon? It's magnificent when you think of what we're doing. And it's all in awareness. And that's what you're developing. You're developing awareness. See, the awareness to do everything is already here, but you've got to get on the frequency that it operates on, because everything operates on a frequency. If you phoned your Uncle Harry, you wouldn't expect your mother to answer the phone. Why? Because you dialed Harry's number. You got on Harry's frequency. That's what the number is. It's a frequency. And there's a zillion of them. We know there's an infinite number of frequencies. Everything you want is already here. What you have to do is attract it. And you know something? You're going to learn how to do that. You see, what we really have to do, we need to make a paradigm shift. We're programmed to operate the way we're operating. Why would 97 or 95% of the population keep using a losing formula? They don't know they are. They're giving it everything they've got. We got to shift our thinking. We got to shift the paradigm. Do you know many of the beliefs and the ideas that are controlling your decision-making right now? They were established by some great-grandparent who lived in a different time. But all that stuff is passed down in the genes. It's called genetic conditioning. We got to change that. You see, while you're thinking way down here on this lower frequency, the way to do what you want to do is way up here on a higher frequency. And what's required is a committed decision. A committed decision is when you do it regardless. And when you make a committed decision, this is what I'm going to do, you flip your brain onto that higher frequency and the way is shown. Now we're going to talk about your sixth sense, your intuitive mind. because that's how it comes to you. You're tapping into universal intelligence. That's what all highly successful people do. Whether they know they're doing it or not is irrelevant. But that's what they're doing. That's what you're going to learn how to do. See, the only criteria you have to have when you set a goal is, do you want it? Do you want it? Doesn't matter how you're going to do it. It doesn't matter where the money's coming from. I once heard a cute story where the Maharishi, when he was taking transcendental meditation or decided he was going to take it to the world, one of his close associates said, "Where's the money going to come from?" He said, "Wherever it is right now." I always thought it was such a beautiful answer, because the truth, everything you need, everything you want is already here. Nothing is created or destroyed. I didn't dream this up. It's the way it is. All science, all theology tell us that. The way to get to the moon was already here, always here. When President John Kennedy asked Dr. Wernher von Braun, who's considered the father of space travel, what it would take to build a rocket that would carry a man to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth, von Braun answered him in 5 words: the will to do it. The will to do it. Will is a mental faculty that gives us the ability to concentrate. You got to concentrate on what you want. That's all you can concentrate on. And that will keep you on the frequency that you have to be on to attract everything that you need to get there. This is so important. You see, I believe decision where it all starts. It's where it all started for Napoleon Hill. It all started when Carnegie asked him, "Are you prepared to dedicate the rest of your life to an idea for which you'll probably receive no material compensation for at least 20 years? How would you answer that?" You see, he didn't know how to do that. He didn't even believe he could. Do you know what I found? When you set a goal, you don't have to believe it. If you keep repeating it, you'll come to believe it. If you tell yourself a lie often enough, you'll believe it. Way back in 1900, William James from Harvard, he said, "Believe, and your belief will create the fact." So true, and so misunderstood. So what do you want? Compare your dream to Napoleon Hill's idea. Just compare it for a moment. Your idea is probably small by comparison, but if you don't know how to do it, if you don't know where the money's coming from, if you don't know where the help's going to come from, it'll probably seem large. When I took my pen and I sat down and I wrote, I would build a company that operated all over the world. I had no idea how I was going to do it. I certainly didn't have the finances to it. I didn't have the help. I didn't even have an assistant. I was just me in my den writing on a pad. Do you know something? Today, I own a company along with Sandy Gallagher, who is my business partner, and we operate all over the world. These aren't accidents. I'm just an ordinary guy that's doing what the public would consider something extraordinary. But it's not extraordinary to me, and it's not going to be to you when you start to understand these principles and incorporate them into your life. I once read where it said, no amount of reading or memorizing is going to make you successful. It's the understanding and application of why stuff that can. You're going to study this. I study it every day, for at least an hour, sometimes more, but at least an hour. It's a habit. Habit's something you do unconsciously. You don't even spend any time thinking about it. You just do it. You get dressed by habit. You shower, comb, wash your hair. Habit. Do you know good habits automatically transform our life? The one thing you need if you want to move higher is a greater awareness. People are not earning $100,000 a year because they want to earn $100,000 a year. They're earning $100,000 a year because they're not aware of how to earn $100,000 a month. People aren't alone and lonely because they enjoy being alone and lonely. They're alone and lonely because they're not aware of how to build meaningful relationships. People don't struggle all of their commercial career because they enjoy struggling. They're struggling because they're not aware of how to knock those blocks down that are all inside. It's never outside. It's never another person. It's never a condition or a circumstance. It's always lack of awareness. This is such beautiful information. I've been living with it for a long time. I don't even know how you'd live without it. In fact, I don't think you can. You merely exist. And unfortunately, that's the way most people go through life. Do you see, our educational institutions is not giving us this kind of information. They really don't. They really believe the secret is read the book, remember what's in the book, and be able to repeat it. Answer the questions, more right than wrong. You'll pass, you get the degree. Well, we've got people graduating from some of the most prestigious universities in the world every year with multiple degrees that are having difficulty finding work, that are broke. How does that happen? And yet you'll find other people who are functionally illiterate, they can neither read nor write, that are earning millions. How do we account for this? You're going to find that out as you study this. It's got nothing to do with anything outside of ourselves. Education isn't answering what's in the book. Education comes from the Latin educo, meaning to educe, to develop, or to draw from within. Remember I said, everything's already here, omnipresent? That's within us. Madame Montessori was right. Napoleon Hill was right. Carnegie knew the right question. Hill knew how to answer it. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? That's your question. You got to make a decision. You follow this, you can do whatever you want. Whatever you want. I mentioned we want to build schools in Africa for kids that have never seen a school. And so we're building them. There's many things we want to do. We do them all. I never wonder if I can do something. I just ask myself, do I want to? That's the way I think God meant us to live. I believe we're doing God's work. Somebody say, what's God's work? Well, if God's the creator, then God's work would be creation. We've been given the mental faculties to create. We've been created in God's image. Somewhere along the line, way back when, somebody got that mixed up. They thought when they said you're creating God's image, that God was created in their image, so they're looking for a man on a cloud. There is no man on a cloud. But I'm going to tell you something. You got some phenomenal stuff locked up inside of you. You bring it to the surface, you can have anything you want. It's a great way to live. Study this every day. It will pay astronomical dividends. And you want to know something else? You're going to find people that laugh at you at first will start following you. They'll start to want to know, what are you doing? I know, because they laughed at me. But then they started to follow me. And then they started to thank me. I am so grateful to the great work that Napoleon Hill dedicated his entire lifetime to. And you know, when you finish this, you will be too, because your world is going to change like night and day. My hope for you is that you get as much out of this, or even 10% out of this, as I've got it over my lifetime. And if you do, you're going to have an absolutely brilliant future. I love my life. Every morning I wake up, I've got a beautiful day in front of me because I'm doing what I absolutely love to do. And you know the beautiful part? I'm doing it with people that are just like myself. They're into bigger ideas. They're into learning. They want to know. And they know they don't know it all. But we can keep growing. That spark of perfection within you is jabbing you, tell you, want this, want this. Write it down. Make up your mind you're going to do it. And remember, you don't have to know how. You only have to know you will. Hello there, I'm Bob Proctor. And you know, what you're watching is the essence of what's helped me build a very successful life. I've earned millions of dollars. I have business that operates all over the world. And I've worked with some of the most fascinating people that you'll ever want to meet. Not only does it have all of Napoleon Hill's 13 major principles for success locked up here. But you've got the influence of some of the wisest people in the world that I've worked with over the past 57, 58 years. Napoleon Hill spent his whole life putting this together. This is Think and Grow Rich. I've been reading this particular copy now every day since October the 21st, 1961. It's a long time. The man that gave it to me, he said, Bob, if you will read this every day, just read a bit of it every day, and then do exactly what I tell you until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about, you can have anything you want. Now, I have to be honest, I did not believe that when he said that. I was broke. I had 2 months high school formal education. I'd never done anything of any consequence in my entire life. And for the fact that I could have anything I want, I didn't believe it, but I believed he believed it. And that made the difference. And so I started to do what he suggested, and I've studied these 13 principles. What you're looking at here is a Hollywood production of the essence of success in most anyone's lives. You see, Hill studied 500 of the world's most successful people. Then he took people like Firestone and Carnegie and Ford, Edison, and he became intimate friends with them. And that's what this is all about. This is the golden thread that runs through their life. This is, without question, the best investment you'll ever make in your entire life. It's helped me build a life, a very successful life. And it'll do exactly the same thing for you. Hit on the link below. Don't ask anyone what they think you should do. This is an incredible series, this legacy series. It's the essence of Napoleon Hill's lifetime of study, coupled with my lifetime of study. Because I've never stopped studying what Hill discovered. And I'm still using it today. And I'm suggesting and recommending that you use it. You see, I coach people and I'll tell them, if they'll do exactly what I tell them, until they find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't lie. And I do know what I'm talking about. I think my reputation speaks for itself. I work all over the world, with some of the most successful people in the world. Hit on the link below. Treat yourself to this series. I guarantee you, a year from now, you're going to have to look way back to see where you started. And it'll happen that fast. Because it's all locked up in a series of Hollywood-produced videos of the 13 principles that I have used for the past 57 years. Hit on the link. Get it right now.